contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
We're here with our good friend Ali Safavi of the National Council of Resistance in Iran, and we wanted to go to the source to find out what's happening on the ground in Persia. What's happening, Ali? What do you see going on?
Well, actually, now that the ceasefire and the war has ended, I think this is a step forward for the third option, which we have been advocating now for 44 years. Actually, Mrs. Rajavi said that now we can continue our work ourselves outside and the resistance units inside Iran, organizing and mobilizing, and of course continue to target the IRGC and the Basij to basically foment a nationwide uprising that will topple the mullahs. As you know, we have been for the past 44 years saying that the policy toward Iran does not to be binary, which is either we go to war with it or we continue to repeat it, as has been the prevalent policy ever since the mullahs came to power in Iran. Actually, Mrs. Rajavi, 21 years ago at the European Parliament, said that we should not let the Munich experience repeat itself, because you will appease the regime and you will have the war. And of course, we saw what happened, has happened over the past 12 days in that part of the world. And so in this sense, I think the West, the United States for that matter, are to recognize the right of the Iranian people to self-determination, free of any form of tyranny, whether monarchic or religious, and at the same time recognize the right of the resistance units to confront the IRGC so that this regime could be overthrown.
So are you seeing, Trump has been a little bit, I don't want to use the word wishy-washy, but he's shown both sides of whether or not he's pushing for regime change. What do you see from the Trump administration as far as help or no help on the ground to try to remove the regime?
Well, I think that the correct policy ought to be no concessions to the mullahs. Mm-hmm. I think the policy of maximum pressure is a sound policy, but in and of itself is not sufficient. Mm-hmm. I think there has to be a public, unequivocal acknowledgement that this regime must be overthrown. Of course, not from above, not through military intervention, but by the Iranian people and the organized resistance. And the people of Iran and our movement, whom you know very well, are quite capable of making this happen. All that we need is for the West to stand beside us. As you may know, over the past 40 years, not only we have not been supported or even acknowledged by the West, we have had to overcome a lot of obstacles that has been put in the way of our struggle, like, for example, the MEK politically motivated designation in 1997, the problems we had in Iraq, in Ashraf I. But of course, fortunately, we overcame all of those obstacles through tremendous effort, through investing human treasure, our political capital, and of course, our financial resources. But we are now, of course, gaining back our legitimacy, and in a sense, we are full throttle working day and night in Iran, outside Iran, to bring freedom to the people of Iran, which they deserve, having been under 4 tyrannies, 4 dictatorships over the past 120 years.
So there's a narrative, and I even noticed it for the monarchists to come back in. The son of the Shah is making the rounds. What say you about that? I find that interesting.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I have to say, and I think I'm speaking for millions of Iranians, and I think many in the Iranian diaspora, that the Iranian people do not want to replace the turban and the robe with the throne and the cloak. They experienced the reign of Reza's father and grandfather, and it was nothing but repression, brutality, corruption, and devastation for Iran. Remember that, ironically, it was Reza's father, Savak, the secret police that executed many democratic dissidents in Iran, including the founders of the MEK. And of course, it created a power vacuum in which Khomeini opportunistically stepped in. So yes, the Iranian people despise the current regime, hate this regime, want to overthrow it, but they have not at all forgotten the crimes and the atrocities that the Shah's regime committed. So for them, it is not a look to the past or accepting of being content with the present. They're looking to the future for a democratically elected republic that, of course, responds to the needs of the Iranian people and works on a flourishing, prosperous Iran. That's the reality of the situation. More than that, Reza Pahlavi doesn't have anybody, any structure inside Iran. Have you ever seen any of his supporters having their nose bloodied in the fight against the mullahs? No, because there is none. And of course, when you look at his rallies outside Iran, you have been to our meetings. You were in Paris in 2018, where we had 100,000 people show up. We just had a rally in Berlin on Saturday. Thousands came on, also in Sweden, and of course in Washington on March the 8th. We had thousands of people. And what about Reza Pahlavi? Well, they had called for a rally in Washington in April, and they worked on it for 3 months. And it was on a Sunday when nobody goes to work. And guess how many showed up? Less than 400. It was so bad that the person who was organizing it, a diehard fan of the son of the Shah, went on TV and told Iranians in Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C., shame on you. Because, there are at least 300,000 Iranians living in that tri-state area, and only 400 showed up. So that goes to show that he doesn't have any support even within the Iranian diaspora, where Iranians do not have to face persecution, arrest, and torture, and they can express themselves freely. But you compare that with the kind of support that our movement has, the kind of price that we have paid inside Iran over the past 40 some odd years, and you can see the difference. So clearly, when it comes to any game plan for the future of Iran, Reza Pahlavi and his clique do not even have a seat on the bench. If anything, he constantly, including his press conference here on Monday in Paris, he said, I'm in regular contact with the top brass of the IRGC, and I've opened up a channel where they can come and they express their allegiance to me. And that means, obviously, that from his point of view, all these IRGC commanders who have their hands bloodied with the blood of the Iranian people can be part of today's Iran and can be part of tomorrow's Iran. Well, that's not going to happen. If Marie Antoinette ever returns to France, so will Reza Pahlavi to Iran.
Interesting. So I think I've read a lot of reports how the Iranian people were, I guess, united, is for lack of a better word, against some of the recent attacks by Israel on the Iranian military. Is that true, or are they looking more towards regime change, or are they, anybody gets attacked, it's like, you kind of unite against the aggressor, for lack of a better word. What do you see on the ground with the Iranian people? Are they pushing for regime change?
Let me say a couple of things. First of all, just like the Iranian resistance, the people of Iran don't want any war. They don't want to have their freedom from above or from by way of foreign military intervention. That's point one. Point two, I think for all of us who are outside of Iran,
special report. Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
We should be, in some sense, not be beguiled or accept the Iranian regime propaganda. I have seen some of those videos. Iran is a country of 92 million. When the last elections were held, only 11% of eligible voters went to the polling stations. And even those, a lot of them were government workers, public sector workers, who had to have their identity cards stamped and a good portion of them were members of the IRGC and the military. So
Mhm.
this regime maximum has the support of maybe 4 or 5% of Iranians. And so the crowds that you saw, these were very cameras that were very close up. They didn't show crowd in the millions. There were at most a couple of thousand. And I submit to you that most of them were friends and families of the regime's officials. And so, if anything, you saw in 2022, tens of thousands came out onto the streets. So we have always challenged the mullahs that if they claim to have the support of the Iranian people, and if they claim that our movement doesn't have support, why not allow the Iranian people just 1 hour to come out onto the streets of Iran without the fear of being arrested, uh, tortured, and executed? And you will see what will happen. This regime, the only instrument that has kept it in power, aside from uh, fomenting unrest in the Middle East and, of course, its nuclear weapons program, is absolute suppression in the country. Just under Masoud Ahmadinejad, he's been in office just for 10 months. 1,350 people have been hanged. So you can imagine that it is the repression that is keeping this regime in place. And one thing that the resistance units are doing, acting like the tip of the spear or a sledgehammer, if you will, trying to break down this wall of repression. And of course, once that wall is cracked sufficiently, then you will see millions of Iranians into the streets and ultimately closing the chapter on this odious criminal regime and bringing freedom back to Iran.
What about what do you see the path forward? I mean, it's kind of murky right now. What would you like to see happen, I guess, is the question.
Well, I think when it comes to the international community and the U.S. for that matter, I think they should make an unequivocal statement that they support and recognize the right of the Iranian people to self-determination, the right of the Iranian people to have freedom. Alongside that, they should also acknowledge and recognize that the resistance units are legitimate in their fight against the Mullah regime, and they should also refrain from offering any political or economic concessions to the mullahs of Iran. Don't give them another lifeline, and let the Iranian people do what they want to do. But of course, they need the political and moral support of the free world with them, just like Solidarity enjoyed it, just like ANC enjoyed it during the apartheid regime.
Last question. I think this is, as it was with Mossadegh and others, it's a question of access to resources and control of those resources in the region. I've noticed maybe some people don't want you in power because I've heard words like kooky or, whatever against the MHA. What do you say to that? I mean, just straight up, what's your answer? Yeah.
All of that, of course, is propagated by the Iranian regime's propaganda operatives because they view our movement as an existential threat. Of course, they have failed to eliminate us physically after murdering 100,000 of our supporters, launching military attacks against us when we were in Iraq, cajoling or coercing Western governments to put us on the terrorist list. All of those have failed. So what they are trying to say now, they say, well, we are bad, but our opposition is even worse. And so, of course, in the absence of a viable democratic alternative, realpolitik dictates that you continue the status quo. So basically, that's the propaganda of the Iranian regime, and we believe that the West should not heed that and basically see the plan that we have, the 10-point plan that Mr. Rajavi has put forth, which many have called the Jeffersonian plan for the Iran of tomorrow.
Ali Safavi, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you carving it out. I know you're traveling to Paris, so thank you.
Well, thanks very much, Todd. Keep up the good work, and looking forward to being on your show again as the situation warrants.
Please. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.